The show is about to start, folks, but the refreshment stand will remain open for your pleasure.
The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerfherder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
I'm ready to talk about this week's movies.
Well, let's go then. Let's talk.
Welcome, everybody.
And just to give everybody heads up, it is minus 200 degrees in Chicago this morning.
Yeah, approximately.
So stay inside.
Christina may not survive this hour,
No,
so we're going to try to get her
she's frosting
opinions.
up as we speak. Oh, man. So that's it. So how's everybody's week? Good?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Everybody
watched
come.
movies, ready to talk about them.
Yeah, made a fire, curled up. So let's go. What are we talking about this week, Jim?
We are in the midst of a forever ongoing series, I think. I don't know. I
No,
don't
we
see any potential end to this.
No, we just keep adding to it, to be honest with you. Which
Our
is not a
favorite-
bad thing.
No, it's not a bad thing, and it's a really fun series. It's we've explained this a few times already, but we're doing our favorite monsters, favorite genres, favorite monsters.
Yeah, genres.
So
Critters.
this week it's all about alien invasion.
Ooh.
So we're trying to pull new movies together with classics, as you know we set out to do when we started this podcast, despite COVID, and we are finding some new movies. So
There is
this
stuff
week we're
out
going to
there.
be
It's surprising.
although we're a little bit behind the eight ball on this one. It's been out for a while, but Save
all right.
Yourselves
It's
is our
new to us.
first. That's our first film, and our co-feature is Attack the Block.
Ooh.
But before we get into it, as always, do we have news?
We do have a little bit of news. It's not nice news, but it's news nonetheless, and I think we need to talk about it. Gina Carano, Disney, let her go. Listen, I'm all for free speech, but it has ramifications, and this is what we're seeing right now. Yeah, it's disheartening because I really liked her as a character. I really liked her character. It looked like Lucasfilm was setting her up for her own series, which would have been interesting. So I don't know. We don't want to get too political about it, but do they write her out? Do they just recast her, or do we just pretend she never existed?
I mean, I think probably it'll be a non-issue. They haven't actually announced any. They didn't actually announce any casting for the Rangers of the New
True.
Republic series.
Yeah, no, I don't
And-
think, but from what I understand, that was not going to be centered around her anyways.
Yeah, they weren't beholden to a character or a setup yet because all
Right.
we've gotten is a name.
Well, and then for the Mandalorian, I've seen rumors that they're gonna have a time jump
What?
again.
Spoiler alert. Baby Yoda going to be like teen Yoda now?
I mean, I think it's probably just a non-issue. She just
Yeah.
won't show up again.
And just won't show up.
Yeah.
Won't be mentioned.
It just
But-
seemed to me like it was a case of once too many, because this isn't the first time that there has been controversy around things that she had put out there. And so there was rumor about, is Disney going to let her go? But it hadn't happened yet until this latest posting. So Disney is probably considering that this is going to continue to happen because it didn't stop after the first barrage. So,
And you, Jim, you mentioned offline, that all this stuff that we kind of are holding dear now is being torn apart. And-
yes, because the other big one is Joss Whedon.
Which is
All
it just taints everything. This is, it reminded me of the fact that when we reviewed Toy Story 4, and I think it was just you and I, Jim, and we got into it a little bit with John Lasseter, who I absolutely adored and loved. And then, all these rumors and stories started dropping, and you rightfully cut it out of the conversation because it really had nothing to do with the context of the movie itself. But it's sad that these creative people who we've grown up with now and love their work, Joss Whedon, especially, you're talking about what was it, Buffy?
Buffy, Angel,
which you right.
Firefly.
So that whole universe that were like this guy, then Avengers, and now it's all tainted. It's all kind of like.
Honestly, though, this is not the first time we've heard this about Joss Whedon.
Yeah.
Because his ex made allegations a few years ago.
Right.
And other actors
when you got a Sarah
out...
Michelle Gellar coming out of the woodwork and now substantiating these, yeah.
I never really liked the first two Avengers movies that much anyway. So.
What?
No, I don't.
How are you on the show?
But think about Buffy, the legacy that he has with Buffy and Angel and everything else. I loved Buffy. I fell in love with that show.
Yeah, that's your
I was
that's
obsessed
your
with that show. And then to an extent, even more so Angel. And just to know that all this was going on.
Right.
I can't imagine watching this now.
No.
Without thinking about that.
There's now an asterisk attached to these shows.
If you're in a position of power, you have a responsibility not to abuse it. So I think yes, it's sad for us, but it's worse for the people who've dealt with.
That's just
think
it.
About that. You're on a show. You're not only on a show. Not only do you have a job, but you're on like a genre era defining show, and you don't want to lose that.
Yeah.
So you're forced to deal with it.
Yeah, that's all you gotta say.
Yeah.
Maybe people should just stop being terrible. That
would be nice.
That would be nice. Yeah.
Hashtag jerks. That's all my news I got. I don't really want to. I don't have anything else unless you guys do. I didn't really see anything else pop up this week.
Well, I saw something. I was looking this up in the context of our second feature today, Attack the Block. I was trying to see what Joe Cornish was up to, because there's been rumors for some time that he was going to do a sequel to that movie. Apparently, that possibility is still floating out there. But the more exciting thing for me and for my son is that I found out he's making a series. It was a young adult horror series called Lockwood & Co. And he's doing the series for Netflix. Apparently it was just announced like a month and a half ago and I missed it. This is an amazing book series about a world that is inhabited by ghosts that terrorize people. But only kids can see them. So only kids can fight them.
So it's real world.
Is
this a young adult?
It's a young adult series, yeah. And it's really, really good. And my son and I read it together. We were so sad when the series ended.
Sounds like Ghostbusters Afterlife just stole that entire synopsis.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is it's like the whole safety of your society is in the hand of children, right. The kids who can see the ghosts, it becomes like terrorizing for them to grow into adults because they know the threat is out there and they can't see it. It's a really good series. I was very, very excited to see that he was going to make this series for Netflix because I think he does a great job directing kids. So
this will be a live action series. Interesting. Yeah. Oh, very cool. All right, we should check it out. We should also make mention of the fact that if you hang around after our 2 movie reviews, that we will be talking WandaVision yet again.
Oh, I can't wait for that discussion. All right, Save Yourselves. The plot of Save Yourselves is so straightforward and simplistic. I can just wrap it up in like 2 minutes. Couple, Sue and Jack, they're inundated with social media. They're wrapped up in their phones all day. They want to cut off communication. They want to get away, and there's a friend that they have that has a family cabin upstate New York. So they plan to get away for a whole week. Don't look at their phones, don't look at their computers, just cut off and enjoy the surroundings. And don't you know it,
hilarity ensues.
The week that they plan on doing this is the week of a scheduled alien invasion.
It was on the calendar?
It was on the calendar.
Was it on the calendar?
They weren't aware of it.
Okay, this week we're going to go.
So because they've cut themselves off, they have no idea what's going on. So it's a very noble idea that they have, but it really is to their detriment, unfortunately.
Are you talking about the characters or the creators of this movie?
Well, I think that the interesting thing about the characters, one of the things that you see happen, and I actually talk about this a lot in real life. Like when I go into a restaurant and I see like four people sitting at a table
Yes,
and
and
they're
they're
all
all on their
looking at their
phones.
phones,
Oh
and
no,
I'm
this hit a little too close to home when you see them, together on the couch. And that's a young couple.
Yeah.
I had a really hard time getting past Jack's mustache. It's
The whole thing is that having the phone allows them to not confront the things about their lives that make them
Yeah.
unhappy.
yeah,
You
it
know,
becomes a barrier.
Yeah. And
It's an-
whenever there's a lull in their conversation, they grab for the phone. You can't denigrate them for that. It's what everybody does. It's an addiction.
it's the society. Yes, it is an addiction. It is absolutely an addiction.
and it's because they're always looking at their phones, they never really talk about what they really want to do with their lives. Like they're kind of in jobs, they're just in jobs. Like it's not a career, it's not something that
Yes,
means
right.
anything to them. Like what do they want for the future of their relationship? Like do they feel that they've, been as honest as they can with each other, or
Right.
like connected as much as they could?
Right.
And I think on a lot of levels, like, the movie's not really about an alien invasion. It's about
Correct.
like saving yourself from technology and like,
Oh yeah, this is right there with Wolf of Wall Street, or Wolf of North Hollow, which is if you're coming into this to see a straight up alien
werewolf
invasion movie, this is not this is about as quirky as you're going to get. And it's the same thing, right? It's more about these two.
And
these
to an
two
extent.
people.
To an extent, you could say that's where the fault lies, because I wanted the alien invasion aspect going into this.
I had a really hard time getting to care about these two characters initially. Like I said, they're a lot younger. They're these, they're Brooklynites. They're very tied up in themselves, and I just didn't feel the relationship was real. But maybe that's why, because they were just kind of there for each other. They weren't really, and Jack eventually says when they decide to go to the cabin, he's like, I want to know who I am. I want to know, what are we really doing here?
And I actually was the opposite, because I felt very engaged in their struggles, like to connect with each other.
Right. Yeah. And even when they're at that party, there's a disconnect between all these people, and then we're introduced to this other guy, Raph, who I loved. He was 3D printing surfboards out of algae, which I thought was like, would that just fall apart eventually?
He's one of these guys who's almost like has almost a comically meaningful life, and obviously that contrast is what really gets to them. Like, what are we doing?
Because he's just kind of like this carefree guy. He's kind of like the dude. He's just
but
hey,
yeah,
dude.
at the same time, it's like, okay, I would like to be like Raph too and just quit my job and do something completely idealistic, but it's completely fictionalized. Like, how realistic is that? So of course they're looking at him like, oh, if anybody could do that, everybody would do that, quit their job and be like Raph, but it's not really realistic.
Everybody can be Raph. So
that's why I was more taken with that statement that the Stegosaurus are further away in time from a T-Rex than we are from a T-Rex. I just obsessed over that.
That was did
Once
you
I heard it.
Oh, did you actually fact check that? Because
I didn't fact check
that did blow my mind. I didn't put it in my notes, but I'm like, wait a minute, they've always played side by side on my little dinosaur.
So they were at the cabin, and I'm still thinking, wow, that is amazing.
Raph, you just blew my mind.
Like your needle slipped a groove and it just stayed there on repeat.
I'm just obsessed over it now.
I really empathize with them a lot, because I felt, especially, because I felt that they were trying to come from a sincere place, like to try to, save themselves from like this life that they didn't.
Yeah, like I said, the title of the movie has less to do with the aliens and more to do with, them reclaiming their selves.
It's almost like that they took the sci-fi genre hostage in order to tell the story of this couple. So those coming to this looking for the sci-fi element are going to be disappointed.
There's enough of it going on. I don't know. I mean, all you got to do is look at the trailer, the movie poster, and I think you kind of get a sense of what you're going to be dealing with.
But watching it, I didn't get a sense of what I was dealing with because, okay, let's talk about the alien invasion aspect.
Okay,
for a bit.
which
The
we see
poof.
kind of unfold as they get to the cabin.
Right.
You see the little ship's car, whatever
they
coming
are.
into the atmosphere.
It could
They're
be an
at the
attack the
cabin.
block situation where they've explained where these are spores or something coming. It doesn't necessarily have to be ships.
But as soon as this movie opens up, the first thing you see is the year humanity lost planet Earth.
And you also hear a voiceover from Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah. So they're laying the groundwork pretty early, you know, that something odd is going to happen. But yeah, they're in the cabin. You start hearing gunfire in the background, and they just kind of dismiss it. Well, you know, we're out in the country and whatever.
Because they're in New York, right? So they probably hear this all the time in a city.
Oh yeah,
and they
no, they're out.
dismiss
Yeah,
it, right? So I'm sure it's okay.
This is like a whole
I'm
new
sure
world
it's
for
fine.
this. Is an alien environment for them because they're Brooklynites. And we'll get into it on the back end, but toward the end of the movie, she does make mention of the fact they're in Pine Bush, New York, which has a very famous ET pedigree. But yeah, they're stuck out in the woods.
And they don't really have any skills, and
she says that straight up.
Yeah,
Once they realize what's going on, she goes, "We have no skills." Like, there was something
even before they realize there's an alien invasion, they
Yes.
bemoan their lack of skills. They can't light a fire, like they can't
No,
start
that's
a
true.
campfire.
That's true. They could barely figure out how to work a canoe. At one point, because they did make a pact. You know, phones away. Phones are gone. We are just connecting to each other. And then she immediately calls out for cheating because, you know, all this relationship stuff that she's trying to figure out with him, she writes down in a notebook. So he's like, but you just took something off the internet and wrote it down on a piece of paper. That's not it. But at one point he even says, I'm dying to Google how to trap a rabbit. And it's like, what are you going to do with it once you trap it?
You sort of see like a rift in their relationship that probably existed before.
Oh yeah.
Which is that she is very solution oriented, and he is more like, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And so like she comes into this with this idea like this is not a week to relax. This is a week to like productively
it's right. It's like therapy. We're now in a retreat, a couple's retreat.
You know what's funny? We're talking about this, and I keep wanting to get back to the aliens. The same feeling I was feeling as I'm watching the movie.
Can we just get back to the aliens now?
Let's get back to the aliens now. The poofs.
Okay.
Let's talk about the poofs.
So at one point he's walking through the cabin, and you just see like this fuzzball, which to me looks like if you ever see the movie Critters, it's a Tribble.
Or the Tribble episode of Star Trek.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just a giant fuzzball.
So it's benign at first. They see it in the cabin with them at one point. It's just there. They think it's an ottoman. They didn't notice before.
Yeah.
But so it's benign. But as the film goes on, you're hearing the messages that they're getting. Like these poofs are obviously in New York City as well. And Sue's mom is saying that the news is telling them that it's a rat problem. But then there's that message about ethanol and that they're attracted to ethanol.
And the only reason they're getting those is that she cheated and grabbed her phone at one point. They get into a fight. Right. He marches outside and she breaks down.
She sneaks it. She sneaks it. And then as the film goes on, there's one that's on the wall as they're sleeping that's in the room with them.
Yeah.
But again, benign. So it's not attacking them or anything.
Yeah,
but
there's some questions as to what is the motivation
as to what
of
there
these
is
critters.
intent, because later on, when they come across, much later on, when they're escaping and they come across this truck, the poof actually aggressively attacks the two drivers of the truck.
Right.
Blows their heads open.
Kills
right?
them, yeah.
And you see Raph get killed earlier on.
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't seem like he's fighting the poof. It just
randomly
kills him, indiscriminately kills him.
Weird kind of tendrils that
like a tongue or proboscis or whatever.
Correct.
But yet it doesn't attack them at all until the end.
But it did eat his starter kit of his sourdough starter, and drank all of their alcohol.
Well, we had this theory that the poofs are only aggressive if you're aggressive toward them, because they weren't aggressive toward the poofs at first. And so like they kind of left them alone. And the only time they seem to come, they don't even really come after them when they're trying to escape from the cabin and all the poofs are like there's a
it's
whole bunch
hoarding,
of them
on the
outside the
outside
building.
Yep.
They don't really come after them, so like we had this theory that the poofs don't attack you if you don't attack them, because
Yeah, because the two
people,
that we see get killed shot at it first.
right.
Yeah.
And like earlier you see a guy running through the woods,
Yeah.
so he may have had an
Right. Yeah, because we
and
didn't
you
hear
never see him
gunfire.
again. You
No,
think that
no.
I was thinking that guy was going to come across the cabin, but that was just like a random scene
Yeah,
out of nowhere. That
there's
they
a
never
bunch of
came
random
back
stuff.
Well,
but you
he
did hear
gets taken-
gunfire numerous times.
Yeah,
And screams.
and he
so.
gets taken down when they're in the canoe, like in the
Yeah,
back.
right, correct. Yeah. Yeah, that was the canoe scene.
I was also considering that theory, but then that kind of blew when Raph appears, and you don't see any interaction between him and the poop except that he's dead and he's got blood
Right,
on
so
his
he's
head.
actually, so you right in the messages you find out that he's actually trying to make his way to the cabin.
And the
Gonna be
recurring
safe.
joke that I love in this is when Jack wakes up, and he does this, and he's always
Oh,
disoriented
yeah, this
when
is-
he wakes up. Like, get out, and it's like you can kind of.
Bizarre. That's
Well,
a deal
you-
breaker for me, dude.
You
You're out of this
you
relationship.
can. I never yell in my sleep or anything, but you can appreciate that feeling of being disoriented, waking up in the middle of the night, and maybe seeing something that's not really there.
But does he do it every night?
I
Well,
would
she
hope not.
says that when he drinks, he gets like
Okay.
night terrors.
Night terrors. Yeah. Maybe you should
So-
stop drinking there, Jack.
So he does yell at the poof aggressively, and nothing, nothing happens. And then they find the gun, and that really backfires on them.
Yeah, because then you start seeing the break. Well,
Yeah.
the relationship here, and he's like, "Oh, that's it. We're gun people now. We're gun people."
Yeah.
So I was thinking that the poofs were not actually the aliens themselves; that they were like the pets, or so.
We can
or
get into this because there's a lot more going on than what you
that
see.
they weren't the major threat; that they were just kind of a means to an end for
Right.
whatever it was.
But they
actually...
realized pretty quickly that they need to get out of this cabin. They're timing each other to get the food out of the fridge, put it in the travel pack, get to the door. They don't have any weapons, even though there's a freaking axe sitting outside. It takes them forever. He's grabbing the toilet seat cover, the porcelain top of the toilet. She's got a plunger. And,
But I think that
put the food in the bag and put the bag in the fridge.
I agree. I think
Right.
most people though would respond like this. They feel, and the thing is that other than that sort of initial barrage of messages, they're cut off
Yeah.
because their phones don't have service.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that at some point the communication lines go down. They can't even once they grab their phones, it's all right, turn your phones on. They have no way of communicating with anybody because obviously these aliens are causing havoc, and you kind of hear that. But they're meant that they sound like they're book smart people, but they get into the car and she's like, wait a minute, is there ethanol and gas? And I'm like, what?
I would say probably most people don't realize that, but
Most gas pumps say right
Yeah,
on
most
it. That's
gas
all.
pumps.
It's-
At least
come on.
I know.
I wouldn't
But-
know that as a fact unless I read it every time I went to a gas station.
Right. I mean, it says it on the gas pump, but I would say most people are not paying attention when they go to the gas pump because they're looking at their phones.
Oh, you're not supposed to be looking
You're not
at your phones because it
supposed
can
to,
cause
yeah.
an electric spark.
Unless you want to blow up the gas station.
Okay,
right.
so I know you guys are saying that, but the last time I filled up my car, we were at Costco. The guy in front of us was looking at his phone while he was waiting for the things.
But you know what's funny? When they realize all hell is broken loose here, and they're in the cabin at night, and this is where for me I kind of like connected with these. They start making Sean Connery jokes,
Mhm.
and I was like, all right, now I'm in on these guys. And I didn't write them down, but there were some funny little liners.
Yeah. Oh no, I
Yeah.
loved it when they first saw Poof go by the window, and he's like, I think I saw a hedgehog go by the window.
Yeah, like Sonic
And,
the Hedgehog.
right? And she's like, "What does a hedgehog look like?" And he's like,
Right.
like when Sonic the Hedgehog is in a little ball going so fast."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, the Sonic reference that
Yeah.
I really appreciated that
Yeah.
as well.
You definitely grow to appreciate them. Once you get past the mustache, then it's all. It
Or,
could have been
you know,
just a poof hiding underneath his nose.
I would have liked a shirt that was a little less revealing on him. Like I didn't need to see his chest hair every time he was on screen.
they find a Land Rover in the
Oh, in the
Not
garage.
in
Yeah,
the
because you realized
barn.
that they'd sucked the gas out of the car they drove up in.
And because it's an old Land Rover, it runs on diesel. But of
Right.
course, it's got a stick shift, which, like, anybody under a certain age is probably never driven.
No,
Right.
no, but it was great because at one point he goes, "I'm no expert, but shouldn't you be shifting gears?"
Yeah, and because I learned on a stick shift, that is
Me
not
too.
an easy thing to do. That is an impressive feat in itself. Anybody that knows how to drive stick in this day and age, as Christina is
should.
just alluding to,
Yeah.
yes.
Because when this comes down, when the real alien invasion happens, you better know how to get out of that.
Now they're drunk most of the time.
Right? Actually, I was
It-
very impressed when they came down that one morning, and I'm like, "Damn, they drink that whole bottle
Now
of bourbon."
I'm surprised because they're drunk, right? And so twice you see a poof hovering over, not hovering, but it's on the wall
On
in
the
the bedroom
wall,
while they're
yeah.
sleeping. Wouldn't it try to suck the ethanol from them?
I don't know. There's some
It can go through a
questionable
bottle.
motivations of these poofs. It's not really clear why they're here.
We didn't talk about the baby. Yeah.
Who is so
well,
cute?
so they get away in the car. She's driving the stick shift. She figures it out, and they encounter another vehicle.
It's kind of like the vehicle at the beginning of Peninsula, right? But they actually they stop.
Right. So
were they driving when we first see them, or were they pulled over on the side of the road? Were they
they
already at a
pulled
dead stop?
over. They got out of they were driving at their car. They pulled
Okay.
over. So, like, obviously something was happening.
Right.
They got out of the car.
Yep.
They shot the poof.
Yep, the pink poof, which came up behind them.
And then the poof kills both of them.
Yes.
And so then Sue and Jack are just shocked at what they saw, but they start
Yeah.
to drive past, and then they hear the baby crying.
But that was after the poof floats up in front of them and spews some kind of a weird something
Right.
at them, like
Well,
a force
Jack had
field or whatever,
thrown
and you're like,
the-
"What's going on?" They're it's like, you know,
Right.
I can taste that kind of a
Yeah.
thing.
Whether
And
that
then
was
goes-
intentional or not, you don't know. It was just
And then
the
it goes
side
on its
effect
way.
of
Right.
whatever it did to levitate, and then it
Right.
goes.
Jack threw the wine bottle to distract
That's
it.
right. Yeah. He had this brilliant idea that we're gonna distract them with
It
the
worked.
exploding wine bottles. Yeah.
So they start to drive past. They realize there's a baby. They, like, sit there and debate, like, let's pretend we didn't hear it. And then
Right.
Sue is like, we can't be the people who
No,
drove
you
past
can't be the
crying
people.
baby.
Look, Jim just
You
mentioned
know?
Peninsula. The poor kid that, he was traumatized his whole life because he left that lady on the side of the
Yeah.
road who was begging. You can't just, even if you escape the alien invasion, you'd be like, "Oh,
You can't escape
We
that.
left-
You can't
we left the
escape your
baby.
guilt of
we
doing
left
that.
the
Yeah.
baby."
So then they go to try to get the baby out. And as soon as I saw the car seat, I was like, they'll never get it out. Because if anyone has ever put a car seat in
Yeah.
a car, a baby car
Properly.
seat,
Yeah, it
you have
should
to
be.
latch it a special
Yeah.
way when it's
And it's once
reversed.
you get it in there, there's no way that you want to take it out because you'd never be able to get it in that good again.
But this is my bigger question. When we first see the truck, it is driving and they pull over on the side of the road. So why not just take the truck?
Because that, they have the Land Rover and all their stuff is in it. I don't know.
The old lady steals it from them.
Yeah, I don't know.
She holds
I
him
don't-
up at gunpoint. She was hiding in the back of the truck.
I
Yeah.
don't know, like,
Yeah.
what
And they just
were
decide we're
thinking.
going to take this baby and run through the
But
woods.
hey, these
Just
guys can't
steal
even
that
start a
truck?
fire. They're not going to think 2 steps ahead. Okay, let's get into
The
this
keys
truck
had to
now.
have still been in it.
They've got blinders on, right?
This was where, I mean, I get it that you don't have any skills, but come on.
But
It's
the
like,
woman that actually is hiding in the back of the truck, it's apparent that the parents of the baby didn't know that she was in the back.
That she was back there.
But
She's
she
terrible.
has no such feelings about the baby. She has no reservations
Yeah, what
about
about the
leaving the
baby?
baby
It's not
and
mine.
them.
It's not mine.
Like, there's no reason why she couldn't have just said, "Can I get in the Land Rover with you?" Because it's a diesel,
No,
Like,
but I think
but
the
she
first thing we
steals
realize,
it.
the
Like-
first thing we realize that whether it's the world of the Walking Dead or whatever, it's like when the world goes to hell, it's other humans that are the issue.
Yeah. I'm sure she doesn't wear a mask either.
I'm telling you that I actually actively hoped something terrible would happen to her. I was
No,
like,
we never see her again.
it's like, you are a terrible person, and I
Yeah.
hope a poof gets you. Because
But can I just say how great this baby actor was?
oh, I know.
This kid was like killing it. He was so like just like, oh, dude, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're doing. Like he just was like so unamused by any of it.
Well, it was so cute. I saw in the credits, it's actually triplets.
Well, yeah, okay.
So one
So they all
one-
did a good job. Bravo.
one scene was so cute. One of them was like obviously smilier than the others because you'd
Right.
see a couple times where he'd actually be smiling. He was super adorable. But there was one scene where Sue was feeding him and she stopped and he's trying to
Yes,
get
trying to get to the spoon that she's. Yeah.
And you know that's nothing that's planned. He's just a baby. Like, I thought you
Sure.
were feeding me.
Dude, you were feeding me. Yeah. Yep. You get distracted and you're like, I'm still going in. Yes, I agree.
And you know, they're helpless. They don't know what they're doing, but they still take the baby and they're still trying. You know,
Yes,
so like
yes.
I think at that point, like your sympathy is really with them.
These
Now
people.
and now also you as the viewer and them as characters are totally engrossed in the alien invasion aspect.
Sure.
They have to survive.
Yeah.
So now I'm on board with them at this point as well, where I wasn't earlier on when they're going through all the machinations of the relationship. So they go into the woods. So they got no vehicle now. So they're forced to go into the woods with the baby. And that's when the poof drug that they've inhaled starts to affect them.
Yeah, this was very unsettling for me because he had that axe in his hand, and I'm like, oh,
I know,
this
same
is
thought.
I became very uncomfortable watching him handle that axe. Not, it was like, where are we going with this? Because this, up to this point, you're kind of like, oh, this is a quirky little comedy, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh man, this could.
And you see the
homicidal.
baby crawl away as they're having these hallucinations. And then as you see what happens to them later, it kind of makes sense if the poof's main focus is to incapacitate you. So before we get there, the baby crawls away because they're having hallucinations, right? So you don't know how long they're out of it. Maybe an hour?
I don't know.
That?
Yeah, but they were. You know,
It's still daylight when they
he's eating
come out of it.
dirt. He's eating the dirt.
Well,
It's
Sue actually
bizarre.
figures out the epinephrine. Like she
Oh yeah,
shoots
see,
them
this
with
happened to be in the bags. Yeah, that
she
they
shoots
stole
them
from the
both
truck.
with the EpiPens,
Yeah.
and it seems to counteract whatever affect the.
But you would think this is where like it's questionable to me with these poofs. Like, what is their motivation? If you're going to incapacitate me, the minute I'm on the ground, you're either going to come and eat me, or you're just going to leave me there. Like, what is its motivation?
I don't know.
We don't know.
No.
We don't know. And one of them attacks Jack. And Sue manages to cut its tongue.
Tender tongue. Yeah.
And then it kind of deflates and then floats away like a dandelion. So
And Jack is saved by
His phone.
his phone.
His phone, which was in his front pocket.
So they find the baby. They come to their senses. They find the baby, thankfully. They notice behind them there's something like a shell, like the size of
Like
a
a-
surfboard.
It's like a crystal shard, ice sculpture kind of a
That
thing.
looks like it's growing out of the ground. So they
alien invasion.
Investigate.
Let's go check it out.
and they're touching it, and it is kind of like
Well, that's just
frosted
it.
glass.
Jack's like, oh no. Oh, she's touching it. What are you doing?
Whatever it is it's got enough of a charge coming out of it that it reactivates their phones
Yeah.
when they come close to it. So as soon as those phones are on, I don't know. Well, Jack couldn't get into his because it was broken. But as soon as that phone is on, they start looking at it and are engrossed again into, looking at the text that they're missing and what's happening.
Yep.
And before they know it, that shard has grown around them into
Like
a
a
dome.
force field into a bubble.
And
So
they can't get out.
The interesting thing is that it waits for all three of them to be in its space.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. But then it takes off. It
Yeah.
floats up into the atmosphere. They're now leaving Earth's atmosphere.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden oxygen kicks in.
And I was so wanting to hear Pure Imagination as they were sailing up into the sky.
And then they see there's some other
But,
things floating away. Certain people have been saved.
and that's exactly what she says. Are we saved?
It starts off, as we said, when we lost Earth, is how this
Right.
begins. So this could be the aliens' tact of just expelling humanity. They could be floating for the rest of time in space.
Here you go. You love ambiguous endings there,
Yep.
Christina?
I
Have
do.
at it.
Yep. Well, that's the whole thing. Like, I love this kind of ending because if
Yes.
you're optimist, you can say
Yes.
the aliens wanted Earth, but they took certain people away who behaved a certain way, right? And then, like, they were taken away and then they're going somewhere else and they'll be able to live somewhere else. If you're a pessimist, like, they're basically going to float in space till they starve to death.
Right.
Right.
And there were so many people out there. I would, my pessimistic self says there's not that many good people in the world. So I'm
But-
going for the pessimistic view of this ending.
Oh,
Yeah.
you think that they're all going to die?
I think that they're all going to die. Yes.
Here's what all right. First of all, the poofs I don't think have the level of technology to create something like that. They're just
Well, that's why they're just
they're just
the
these
pets.
little balls.
They're
just the
not
pets.
they're not the main threat. The main threat
Okay.
is something we never see.
Okay, but they kill people, but they're not eating them. And so I just think they completely lack the sophistication to create something like that. So my thinking is more along the lines is that the poofs are almost like intergalactic locusts, and they're just going planet to planet, devastating. And that crystal was actually created by another alien race that was saving humanity.
Oh.
Could be.
There's a huge disconnect between what the poofs were doing and what they look like compared to what this thing was.
I looked at
didn't
them
think
like
that
the
they had-
skitters. Remember the skitters in Falling Skies?
Oh,
That's
yes.
how I looked at them. And that
Gotcha.
they had overlords somewhere else that we weren't privy to.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
I'll tell you that from like a filmmaking point of view, this is actually a really nice low budget solution.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who are like, I guess they ran out of money, so they couldn't come up with an ending.
Well, I mean, but like, it's also, there's something about a creature that looks really benign,
Yeah.
but that actually can kill you.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, look, it's so cute.
Right. Instead of
between the
something
eyeballs.
like that looks like a
Yeah,
xenomorph.
alien. Right, correct. Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I was engaged.
I did like it, and I by the end of it, I did care about these characters. It's too bad that Jim killed them off.
Yeah.
they're just
Well,
floating up the
Jim wanted
because
them to
I killed them
die.
off doesn't mean that just because I did doesn't mean that you have to. Don't let
No,
me
not
rain
at
on your
all. And that's
parade.
that goes back to your kind of ambiguous endings, which is it's left up to you to decide: are they saved or
Choose
are they
your own
not?
adventure, right? Yeah.
Choose your own adventure. Go to page 25.
Yep.
Yep.
But-
I appreciated the scene where that in the hallucination sequence, or was it a dream sequence? Where did this fall in the movie? Where Jack sees Rafe with one of these things on his head, like it's a hat.
Oh, that's right. When they were in the cabin.
They're in the cabin.
Okay,
Yeah,
because
this
that's
was
how
like-
I was looking at the poofs. I'm like, these are just hats that they've purchased and they're using as the aliens.
It is quirky. That the thing of this movie is that I can't think of a single person that I can recommend it to. I can't be like, dude, you love this type of movie. You're
Is
gonna
that
love this.
because you didn't like it, or because
No,
you
I
can't think of
no,
anybody
no.
that would?
It's not. I did not dislike it. I actually really liked it. But I don't. It's a weird. Yeah, I don't think like it doesn't fall under one genre. Because again, if you're coming on for an alien invasion, you're stuck with 3/4 of the movie as a relationship. House on the lake for the weekend kind of a thing.
Oh,
I might be
are
able
we
to
ready?
recommend it to you two, but that's
Can
about
can
it.
we do buckets now then, since we're getting into that
I
space?
think we have to at
Yeah.
this point. So 3.5 for me.
3.5 for me as well.
I'm gonna go 2.5 on
Mhm.
this one. So the pessimists out there, I
They
speak
all
for them.
die.
I speak for them. Yes.
They all die.
This was just the movie kind of fits into the space of, I feel like if you like Taika Waititi movies, things
Yeah, I
like
could
Hunt
see
for
it,
the
yep.
Wilder People,
Yep.
or Eagle versus Shark.
Which I've yet to see.
I think that this is that kind of
Hmm.
space. If you like Flight of the Conchords,
Right.
maybe.
Mm.
I think it's kind of like it's a quirky little movie with a science fiction element, and it definitely to a certain extent kind of makes fun of a certain type of person, but it also doesn't make them stereotypes. Like they're still people, and I enjoyed that. I
Well
thought that
said.
they
Well
were.
said.
Yeah,
I agree. Okay.
I was just looking for more of the element. I'm not going to take away what it was, but I was just looking
Yeah.
for more of the science fiction element.
Yeah. I mean, this thing's only 93 minutes, so it is. Pretty
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in and out. It's
Nice.
it's lean.
It's like and that's probably a really good thing. It did what I kind of wanted Snow Hollow to do, which is stayed very focused. It was like, this is our focus. Like we get in our track and we follow that. And that
Yeah.
actually is the same thing that Attack the Block does. Sort of gets in its track.
And that's even
stays
shorter.
there.
That's even shorter.
That's even
I
shorter.
think filmmakers can take a lesson from things like this, from movies like this. Get in, get out,
Get in, get out. Yeah.
and leave them wanting more.
All right.
All right.
kids. I like
So
it.
let us go to the concession stand, and we will be right back with Attack the Block.
Refresh yourself. It's intermission time. The concession stand is open and ready to serve you.
We are about to witness the takeoff of the first manned rocket to outer space. We pick up the count. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
We're off to visit the planets. There are treats galore in the stars. Venus is loaded with candy, and ice cream is found upon Mars. The soda pop's fizzing on Saturn. When you're thirsty, it sure hits the spot. And Jupiter's really jumping with popcorn that's buttered and hot. But the best of them all is the planet, where all of these treats are at hand. And that is the spot we now head for, our theater refreshment stand.
Okay, we are back, and we are talking about Attack the Block. I'm thinking that Christina is a huge fan of this movie, and this was her recommendation. And I'm going to let her introduce our setting of Attack the Block.
Yes, I am a huge fan of this movie. This movie is about an alien invasion that occurs on Guy Fawkes Night in the Brixton area of London. The first thing that you see, besides the fireworks that are going off everywhere, is this young woman walking home from the tube, and she's attacked. She's robbed. They take her wallet, they take her phone, they take her ring. Then she, runs away. And just as this happens, a meteorite seems to fall out of the sky and crash into the car that they're standing next to. And so Moses, who's the leader of this little gang, played by John Boyega, very young John Boyega.
Yeah, this is older than I thought it was. This is 10 years old.
It's from 2011.
Yeah.
He immediately sort of sees an opportunity, so he goes to try to get into the car, and there's an alien in the car.
Yeah. Yeah, this starts out with a bang. I mean, within the first 5 minutes, you are right in the crux of the story.
So, there's a couple of different focuses that the movie takes. Obviously, it follows these kids. It follows Sam, and their paths will cross. Sam was the woman who was victimized, and their paths will cross again, because it turns out they all live in the same apartment block. There's also this alien invasion. So Moses is scratched by the alien. He goes after it and kills it.
Yep.
And then he brings it home because he's like, I just killed an alien. He shows it to some of the teenage girls who live in his building. They think he's faking it.
Yeah, they're very unimpressed.
He's trying so hard to impress.
Yeah. Somebody refers to it as looks like a monkey effed a fish.
Yeah. But it turns out that this isn't the only one, and that there are more, and that they're now coming after these kids. Basically, the plot of the movie is the 5 kids and Sam and a few other players sort of encountering these what becomes like a swarm of aliens, and they're in their apartment block. The interesting thing is that the kids think, because there's an alien invasion, that it's everywhere. That there'll be police out and that everybody will know that it's happening. But it turns out it's only in their apartment block.
Yeah.
You find out later in the movie, one of the other characters, Brewis, who's a rich kid who basically just wants to get high. It turns out he has some education, and he has a theory that the initial alien was a female who was spreading pheromones, and that because Moses killed the alien, that he is basically dragging around the pheromones, and that's why all the other aliens are coming after him.
Yep.
I think one of the interesting things about this movie is that it really it says a lot, I think, about society, about poverty, about the way these kids are treated. Sam, at first, she's very traumatized. Another woman finds her and takes her into her apartment and says, have a cup of tea. And they say these kids are effing monsters.
Yeah.
But as the movie goes on, you realize that they're not effing monsters. They're just like poor kids who are kind of unmonitored. Like Moses, literally nobody's living with him. Supposedly his uncle is his guardian. He's 15 years old and nobody's watching out for him, you know, especially because we just watched Vampires versus the Bronx recently. You know, remember Bobby and Vampires versus the Bronx? Like Moses
Same storyline,
is Bobby.
Yeah, you're right. Or Bobby's Moses.
Except that Bobby had adults in his life who intervened, right? People who cared about him, and Moses doesn't have those people. And you know, like he lives with his grandmother, and she's like, don't get into trouble. Like she's not really watching him. She cares about him, but she's not, you know, the kind of person who's watching out for him. You see Biggs has a mom at home, but it looks like she's a single mom. She's probably working a lot. She's stressed out. She's trying to, but you know, you have to be home by 10. You have to do this. You have to do that. But he's a teenager, you know, and he's running around with his friends. And Moses just wants, I think, so badly to be a quote unquote man, like the gangsters in his neighborhood.
Right. Yeah.
Especially
because those are really the only role models he has.
So at the top of this building lives Ron.
Nick Frost.
Yeah. And he has a weed room.
Yes. A very substantial weed room at that.
And actually this is the property of Hi-Hats, who's kind of the main gangster. And he sort of solicits Moses like to sell some weed for him. Moses feels very happy about this because he thinks, you know, this is the first step. And there's a pretty significant interaction between them, I think, where Hi-Hats gives him the weed and he says, you do this, you do that. And then he says, but don't get any funny ideas because this is my block. And there's a little flicker in Moses's eyes where you can tell he's thinking, and someday it's going to be my block. Yeah. You know, like he's already thinking, how can I get to where you are? How can I displace you? John Boyega is such a good actor. He does so much with his eyes. Like you see like sort of the false front, you see that toughness, you see his vulnerability. The fact that he really is just a little boy, like playing at being like a tough guy.
And it wasn't until that final, well, not the final scene, but when he reveals that he's 15, when Samantha is in his apartment and she asks, does a kid live here? Do you have a brother?
Right. Yes. Yeah.
And
he's got
and it took that long because he is such a good actor that I wasn't on his side until the end of the movie. And I'm going back to it, but it's a really convincing scene because you see it from Samantha's point of view.
Correct,
and she's mugged. And you're scared because of Moses, because he's the one that's calling the shots of the kids around him. Then she's kind of saved when the alien comes down and crashes into the car because they've already taken her money in her purse. They've already taken the ring. You know, that they've grabbed off of her finger, and they're still saying she's getting away. You know, what else were they going to do with her? You know, they've got everything that they.
Correct.
So it really, I'm shuddered to think of like what would happen if that scene had played out without the alien coming down. So that's like first and foremost in my mind. So it was hard for me to get behind the kids until you see all of their individual home situations.
Right.
And then by the end, I'm like, okay, I'm down with this. And it's been a long time since I've seen it as well. So it kind of was like the same, it was like a new viewing for me. And so if I had seen this over and over and over again, then I'd be more prepared for getting behind them. And I think that I need to have another viewing of this so I can view it with that knowledge of what is revealed to you.
I think it's really interesting because when they all first go back into the block, right before Moses is arrested, right? Because she gets the police to come, like to report the robbery, and like mayhem doesn't really start occurring until Moses is arrested and he's the police are attacked by one of the aliens.
Yeah, and of course they immediately find the drugs on him. So that
right. Yeah. But right before that, they all kind of go back into their homes to get weapons, and you see pests go into his house. You see Biggs go into his house, like you see his mom. You go see Jerome go in. Looks like maybe Jerome lives with his sister, you know, a woman who doesn't look like she's too much older than him. You see Dennis go into his house. You hear somebody yelling at him, maybe his dad, but you don't see the inside of Moses's house. It's so significant. They show you the outside of the door, but they don't show you what's inside.
But he's also, Moses
later.
is shut off himself. You know, he's not as open as the other kids are. So the other kids, just by speaking, you get a sense of who they are.
Yeah.
But you never do with Moses because he's so guarded.
Right, because he's been hurt and he's alone and he's trying to protect himself. And like I said,
and he is a kid. He, like you said, you know, when you do get that reveal, you're like, you're just a little kid, you know, with a big hard outer shell.
There's a scene, you know, where they go outside and they think they're gonna Moses initially gets arrested. Sam ends up in the back of the truck. The Dennis and Moses drive away in the van, and they hit hi-hats in his car. So this actually causes this other complication where hi-hats is now out for vengeance against them, even though he sees his buddy get eaten by an alien. He's angry at Moses and the other kids. And what ends up happening is that Sam runs back into her apartment. As she's doing this, the kids get attacked by the alien. Pest has his leg bitten, and they run into her apartment, and she's scared because she thinks they're going to attack her.
Right, yeah. And they've already roughed her up once.
And they're like, no, like, you know, we're not here to hurt you. Like, we're all on the same side now.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I would be very pessimistic about that. But you keep it. So I want to just talk a little bit about the aesthetic designs of these aliens, because it pairs perfectly with our previous movie.
It does.
These are almost like just steroid versions of the poofs. Obviously, they have 4 legs. They're quadrupeds, but they got these fantastic neon teeth. That's mouth. There's no eyes. It's jet black fur. But you have these teeth that when you first see them, you almost think they're eyes, and then they open their mouth, and it's just this.
And it's almost like that they're 2D creations. They are so jet black that they, in effect, are an outline, except for that mouth. And you only get a sense of their movement or their size when they open their jaws, like how they're positioned, because you can't tell. It is like a combination of a wolf, a dog, a gorilla.
But again, it's like, you know, all this, you know, Christina's talking about all this stuff, all these characters, you know, and you know, you're slowly getting revealed what's going on in their world. And it does it just happens that, you know, this is the world they live in, and they just happen to be in an alien invasion movie. Right. So now they got to band together. It's kind of like Goonies on acid to the extreme, but
so, you know, Sam reluctantly helps them. Like, she sort of bandages up Pest so that he can walk around. An alien comes to the door and like breaks into her apartment. She's like, that's an alien. And Pest is like, yes, this has nothing to do with gangs or drugs or rap music or violence in video games. Like, and it's such a great, really perceptive statement. You know, he's like, whatever you think of us, right? Like, this is not what's actually happened.
But at the same time, she was mugged by them at the beginning of the movie.
Oh yeah, no, I would,
but Jerome says something great later. He says, you know, we were just as scared as you were. You know, it's almost like it's the first time they're trying it on.
I don't think so, because I heard that as well. And looking back at that scene, it's a calculated, coordinated attack. 3 of them, or they surround her.
They surround her.
And at the end,
it's not the first time they've done it.
They're throwing away her purse, saying, "You always pick the poor ones." Like, this is definitely not the first time that they've done it. So that seemed to me to be false, because Jerome is the most likable of, you know, before you get to know Moses, before you really find a story, Jerome is the most likable. He seems to be the sensible one. And I hate to say it, he's got glasses. So it's
that's all it takes.
It's very sad when he dies, because, you know, it's just really, really sad. But even when Dennis dies, the last person he calls out for is Moses. He thinks Moses is going to save him, and Moses is behind the couch, scared to move. Again, like you see that vulnerability, you see that like flicker where he's like, I've got to do something, but he feels that he can't for whatever reason. In that moment, he's frozen. And there's these two other characters which I feel we should talk about. They're cute. They're little like kids who are about 9-10 years old, Probs and Mayhem. And they clearly, just like Moses looks up to hi-hats, they look up to Moses. And so you can see this generational thing happening, where they want to be like little tough guys.
Yeah.
And there's a great scene where they're like, we want to come with you. And Moses says, go home, lock your door, do your homework, watch Naruto. Like he doesn't want, he doesn't want them to be like him. He doesn't want that, and these little guys are running around the neighborhood. They have a super soaker. You think maybe there's water in it, but it turns out they put some lighter fluid in their super soaker. And they
actually have a gun too, which everybody thinks is real until they try to fire it a little bit later on, and it was a toy to begin with.
Right.
That's the kind of crap that gets you killed in the streets, though, kids. So don't recommend that.
The whole thing, like Moses immediately is like,
you
have that.
I am not you. I am not one to idolize. Yeah, don't be like me, please.
Yeah, and then finally the kids end up in Tia's apartment. Tia is like one of the girls that all kind of hang out in the building, and Moses clearly is into her, and she says, how do you know this woman? Because Sam is there. And she's like, well, they robbed me. And Tia's like, I believe that. And then she's like, what's the matter with you? Like, why are you always like this? And you see this look on Moses's face, like he can see like he's done something wrong now. He's disappointed her. This is not what
You're not impressed by me?
Yeah. But there's another really significant line that happens in that scene. When Sam says, we have to call the police, you need help. One of the girls says, you wouldn't be arrested, but they would.
Mm-hmm.
And then Pest says, they arrest us for nothing anyway. And again, like you just get a sense
this is the world this is the unfair world they live in. Yeah.
That like these are kids who are like up against it. Nobody really looks out for them. So they've become these little criminals because they think that that's what they have to do. And they think that they have to be like hi-hats. They think they have to be that kind of person. And it's unbelievable. I mean, this movie was relevant when it was made. It's even more relevant now.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Because nothing's changed.
Yeah. I did like the fact that they upgraded from their bikes to motorcycles, though. So that kicked everything into high gear. There's a lot of action in this.
If you look at this as expressly an action movie / alien invasion sci-fi movie, and you don't think about all the subtext, it pays off.
Yeah.
So much. Because as we said, it's lean and mean. It's 88 minutes in and out.
Yeah. And
there's so much packed in, and the aliens do not disappoint. They are threatening when they need to be.
Yep.
And the characters are in peril. It's not like a tongue-in-cheek kind of a movie where you don't think anybody. The kids.
No, they're ramifications.
Die.
They die. Yeah.
Yeah, Jerome and Dennis both die.
Yep.
Biggs
and the dog.
hiding.
I kept waiting for the damn dog to come back, and I'm like, oh, come on, you can't even bring the dog back.
Biggs is actually saved by Probs and Mayhem because he's been hiding in the
dumpster,
recycling bin.
In the recycle bin. Yeah. Which I would think that alien would be able to get in there, no problem at him.
Yeah, right.
But but Tia says actions have consequences, like everywhere you go, bad things happen.
Yeah, I appreciated that line. Reevaluate.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Right.
And you really see his regret, I think, before the end of the movie, even before Sam goes into his apartment, because there's that scene when they're hiding in the weed room and he says, I never should have mugged you. Like, I never should have done this. And then he kind of says something to the effect of like, we wouldn't have robbed you if we knew you lived in the block. And And she's like, so it would be okay if I didn't live here?
Right.
And Pest is like, stop being so touchy. He's trying to apologize.
Yeah, right. Oh, sorry. Excuse me.
But he's trying. He realizes now, like, because of the extreme events of this night, like, you know, maybe he's made some not great choices. But then you realize, you know, there were almost no other choices he could make, you know.
As a credit to John Boyega, it's even though Moses is emotionally inward and he doesn't express a lot, it's through that performance that you get a sense of the danger. If Moses thinks that these things are dangerous, then everybody else around him does as well. And one of my favorite parts is when they actually hijack, after the two police that arrest them at the beginning are killed, they take the police van. And Moses is driving it, and he runs it straight into Hi-Hat. And I forget what the exact line was, but he says, "This is like a nightmare." He says once he realizes who he's hit.
right, who he just ran into. It's like this night can't
So
get any worse.
it doesn't escape him, that he's not so hard, that he's not scared himself. So it's Boyega's performance that kind of carries you through and shows you the gravity of the situation.
And there's a really sweet scene, actually, before Sam goes into his apartment, because they're setting up a thing where he's going to carry the dead alien body and lead all the, you know, the aliens away. And she's going to go down and turn on the gas in his apartment so that he can blow up all the aliens once he gets in there. And he gets her ring back and gives it back to her. You know, and you just really just see at that point, like, he is, you know, he doesn't even know what to do with himself anymore. He just regrets everything.
He's a victim of circumstances.
That's happened. Then you see the scene, where she goes into his apartment. It looks like a little kid's nest.
A little kid's,
yeah.
Because this is his home. This is where he can be himself.
She said, my uncle, he comes and goes. Mostly he goes. You know, like, nobody's at home for this kid.
Right.
Nobody's there to guide him. No one's there to even say, like, where are you going? You know, so he just does whatever he wants. And then he heroically risks his own life to get rid of the aliens, almost falls off the building. And at the end of the film, you know, Sam goes to the police and tries to speak up for them and says, you know, those boys, they saved me. You know, but of course, like, Pest and Moses are both arrested at this point. So is Ron, because the police have gotten into the weed room.
Oops. Damn aliens. Ruined it all.
And Brewis is also arrested because...
Yeah, we haven't really talked about him. He is like not that there's nobody funny in the movie, but he's like the comic relief. Like, you roll your eyes at everything that this guy says. And he's trying to communicate with these kids. And it's just, he's falling flat on his face every time. And the director, Joe Cornish, said that he based Brewis on himself.
And he's a typical rich kid. He's driving his dad's car. You know, he's talking about how he can't get caught again. He still lives at home with his parents. You know, he could have his allowance cut off if he's arrested. Obviously, like, his problems are not the same as,
I was gonna say, first world problems there.
But, you know, they're all arrested. But then at the end, everyone starts chanting Moses's name, and you kind of see him smile, like, you know, he's been a hero for at least this 1 minute,
right?
You know, and that's how it ends. And I think it's such a great movie. I own this movie. I've rewatched it many, many times. And there's a really cute thing if you own it, there's 2 commentaries, and one of them is called the junior commentary, and it's all the kids. And there's a senior commentary with Jodie Whittaker and Luke Treadaway and Joe Cornish. And it's really cute. Yes, it's such a great movie.
Just like Save Yourself, let's talk about the alien aspect. So it's set up, and Brewis kind of gives this bird's eye view explanation, or attempts to, just from what he saw on the TV a few scenes earlier, that so he works it out that the aliens maybe are spores. They're no UFOs. They just fall down as themselves, kind of maybe like in a blob type situation where they're attached to a meteor or something. And so the female comes down first, which is what we see at the beginning. It comes into the car. So this is the hairless alien that we're introduced to, that they kill.
El Chupacabra.
So this is the female. So males are following her, and that's why they're coming down in this specific section of London, because they are looking for the female. Right. And, you know, as we've said already, the pheromones from after the kids club the female to death in that shed, they've got the blood and pheromones all over, and especially Moses, because he's the main perpetrator. So they're chasing after the kids, not randomly, but because they smell the pheromones.
Yeah, sure.
So that's why the aliens won't leave them alone. It's not like a revenge thing. They're just looking to date them. Yeah. So that's kind of the setup, is that this isn't an invasion of the world per se. They're just looking to mate these aliens.
Just stop, let them have their way with you. All good.
It's not the be all end all. It's just Brewis.
No, right.
It's his opinion, but that's as good as any for me. You know.
Sure.
Okay, I'll take that.
I don't think in this regard. I don't think I need an explanation as to what's really going on here.
But yeah, as an alien movie, as an action movie, this pays off.
So. Yeah, and you know what? I mean, I'm so, like I said, I think last week that I knew about it really early on, but it was super hard for me to find it here. I mean, I did not see it for years. And the fact that it came out in 2011 blows my mind, but we found it now.
Yeah.
And you know, and it's risen in stature because we have Doctor Who stars in this at this point,
right?
As does Finn from the Star Wars.
Yeah, yeah, and this also makes you makes you lament the fact that Finn's character went nowhere in that trilogy. And just a wasted performance, because he never got anything really heavy to chew on, especially once you see this and you see what he can do at a young age. He just was not utilized.
Watching this only accentuates the short shrift that he got.
And he's now gone on record that he was very disappointed, and rightfully so, that Finn did not get a proper story arc.
He's so good in this. And I think if you watch it again, the more you watch it,
it does sound like the more you watch it, the more because you could just watch it as a straight up alien invasion movie and not really get super invested in these kids, or, peek behind the curtain and kind of realize, like you said, it tells you so much about each one of them when they go back to their homes.
Mm-hmm. The more you watch it, the more you really see the subtleties, especially of John Boyega's performance. He's just so good in this. He's so good.
Solid.
So as with many movies that we love, this is more of a cult hit than it was a box office success. When it opened, I think it was against Thor, came out around the same time. And this performed better per screen than Thor did on its first couple of opening weekends. But it didn't make back its budget. It was budgeted at £8 million and it made back $4 million. But time has been very kind to this, and this has got a big cult following now.
Yeah, highly recommended if you've never seen it.
All right, so how many buckets would
we know Christina's going high.
You guys go first.
Is this a secret? Is this a secret 5-bucket episode?
No. I debated, but I think I'm going to say 4 3/4. But maybe it's 5. No, okay. I don't know.
You've talked her up, Jim.
The thing is that I can't see anything that detracts from this movie. Like, for me, there's nothing that detracts from this movie.
And like you say before, if it's rewatchable, infinitely rewatchable, and you get something from it every time.
I'm gonna say 4.99, so that I don't give Jim one of these I don't give Jim agita by having a secret 5 bucket.
That doesn't give me agita. All I have to do is put in the sound effect, and that's it. Yeah.
I'll go 4 1/4. I did enjoy it.
See, I need to watch it again. This viewing, I would give it 3.5. I was too preoccupied with it just affects me. I hate watching scenes like that where I feel powerless as the viewer, because you see it from Samantha's point of view. So I felt in her shoes. So it's hard to get over that. With this viewing, I'm going to say 3.5.
Fair enough. 3's pretty good for you.
Yeah. But this is, I really recommend that people watch this movie if they haven't seen it already. It's and again, it's kind of like Save Yourselves. It gets in its track and it stays there. It moves very expeditiously toward the end of the movie, but does a really good job. This is what I like. It does a really good job of those down moments. You know, like when they're in Tia's apartment and the kids are all just kind of talking, but it's a little lull. It gives you a chance to breathe, but it's not enough that it sort of takes out the urgency of the film. Like that's what's really nice. Like a lot of filmmakers I think have trouble balancing like those down moments and those up moments, but I think this movie does such a good job of it.
Are we ready yet to talk WandaVision?
Oh, yes, we are.
WandaVision.
Go.
It's too bad that this show is not going to just continue endlessly, because we could just take out our confessional
week, yeah.
section completely and just talk WandaVision.
Yeah, true. True that.
So before we
Episode
get into
6,
this
huh?
episode 6, I did read something where it was confirmed that each of the 3 remaining are going to be 1 hour long episodes.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
That's
a
good.
lot of WandaVision.
So now, Christina, were you keeping track of the time on this one? Because just
When-
every single episode for me seems to end too early.
Yeah.
It was, I always look before we start it, and it was 37 minutes. So it was
That's
almost as
all.
long, almost as long
Wow.
as last week, but they're cramming a lot into
They are. Yeah, it's
into that 37 minutes.
So this one is entitled All New Halloween Spooktacular. And it kind of, the interesting thing about this is that the show that it bases itself on this week is Malcolm in the Middle.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Which is not like a laugh track live audience type sitcom. It's more like a handheld, no laugh track. The way that sitcoms started to evolve in the 90s, but Malcolm in the Middle came out in the year 2000. So it seems like they've skipped over the 90s entirely
Yeah.
with this.
But Malcolm
And-
in the Middle is freaking brilliant.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Bryan Cranston, Malcolm. in
I
the Middle.
know, Aaron Taylor Johnson tie in with Godzilla there.
Correct. And that pays off so well. If you are a fan of the film Kick-Ass.
Yes,
and-
I
Yeah, we had a
know.
Kick-Ass reference as
I
well.
said that too. I
That was
like,
pretty
"Kick-Ass."
funny. They just went all out on this one. They're just like throwing things left and right. Because obviously Aaron Taylor Johnson and Evan Peters were both in Kick-Ass.
Episode 5 ends with the reveal of Evan Peters as Quicksilver, as
Quicksilver.
Pietro
Pietro, yeah.
at the door. And everybody's shocked. We were shocked. So now Pietro is in the opening credits of the sitcom, right? So he's part of the show. So they're getting ready for Halloween when the episode opens.
Yeah, we've been waiting for this. This isn't all the promos with them dressed as their comic
And they've
book
got the Funko
counterparts.
Pops have been out before the show came out, with them as they're in their Halloween outfits. Of course, not Pietro, because that would have been
That
too
would have
big
been
of
a
spoiler.
yeah.
But so the kids are there, Tommy and Billy.
Yep.
Dressed as in
Future-
their Halloween costumes, as their future, Young
Yeah.
Avengers personas, right?
Yep, Wiccan and Speed. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got Pietro dressed as Quicksilver, the comic
pretty funny,
Quicksilver,
the comic
with the those
with the hair,
the flock of seagulls hair,
Yeah, the pseudo Wolverine.
and Vision feeling very self-aware in his costume. 'Cause-
Well, he thinks he's dressed as a Mexican wrestler.
yes, because
not
she has
even
a
aware
weakness.
that
He says she has a weakness for Mexican wrestlers.
Don't we all?
And then Wanda is dressed as a Sokovian fortune teller,
Yeah. Okay.
Also
So
known
that-
as Scarlet Witch.
Yes.
also known as Scarlet Witch.
Yeah.
Which is funny because doing a little bit of reading about this episode afterwards, Elizabeth Olsen says that when she first had meetings with Joss Whedon, and this is not going to go there, so don't worry.
Okay. Heather.
But when she first had meetings with Joss Whedon, he assured her that she would never have to wear the comic Scarlet Witch outfit.
You should have
And
got that.
that
in
was
writing,
not the
because
case.
That is not the case at all.
But
Oh.
yeah, so this episode begins and it's Halloween, and Wanda is getting ready. Basically, that it's her getting ready for Halloween and placing everybody where they need to be. The big question going into this episode is, who is this Pietro?
Mm-hmm.
How does he relate to the Pietro we know from Ultron and the one that we know from X-Men? So who is this guy?
Right.
We still don't know.
No.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is that, like, she keeps sort of asking him questions, and he's like, "You're testing me, aren't you?"
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, like, and she, at one point, she says, he's full of surprises. Like, he's not the Pietro she ordered. She wanted one person and she got somebody else.
Right. And you
Right.
do see that flashback of our original
Right.
Pietro
And the whole
from,
thing, you know, you're
Ultron.
testing me. He is not a construct of Wanda. He is aware of what's going on, that she's controlling this whole thing, just
Yeah.
as Vision is. So that gives the indication that these two are beyond her, that this is really being controlled by another entity,
Yes.
which is placing Pietro and Vision in here, because you got the scene, that flash of Vision dead in the
Mhm.
first or second episode. You get the same thing here.
Yeah.
Pietro, which is interesting because she sees Evan Peters as a zombie with bullet holes.
Right.
This version of Quicksilver was never shot in the X-Men
Correct.
movies. So I don't think this is Quicksilver from the X-Men movies.
It's
This is
somebody
some
else impersonating?
insidious. There's more going on with him than
Shapeshifter?
just being Pietro, I think.
Loki?
Well, the thing is like, yes, clearly there's something else at work, but also we do know 100% for sure that Wanda is controlling what's happening inside here because, you know, Vision is investigating. He's off investigating, trying to
Yeah.
find out like what's going on, trying to find the edge of town. And he comes upon very disturbing scene, which is that you see all these people who are sort of not really moving, like they're
Frozen in
Yeah.
time kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Because they're not part of the story in front
Or
of
they're not in close enough proximity
Mhm.
to where Wanda is that she
Right.
can actually manipulate them. It gives the indication that she can only manipulate what's going on around her
Right.
and maybe around what's happening with Vision. And that's about the extent of what she can control at any one time.
But as he's going farther and he's investigating, he finds Agnes sitting in
Yes.
her car at a stop sign, basically at the edge of town, where like you
Yeah.
can't go any farther.
And she's
And-
dressed as a witch.
And I have this feeling that Agnes was trying to escape, that she had a moment where she was trying to get out of the town and she got stuck at the stop sign because she can't go any farther. But Vision does his little brain thingy, you know, where he
Which is
like,
interesting, yeah. Because I don't think that he has that ability, but
and same thing he did last week.
Yeah.
And she says, "Oh, you're an Avenger. Are you here to help us?" You
Right.
know, and he's like, "What's an Avenger?"
right.
Yeah.
Because we know before that he has no memory whatsoever before showing up on this.
See, here's my thought on that.
Mhm.
I think that she's playing possum. I don't think that she's helpless. I think that she's trying to convince him to get out because he is destroying this fantasy. So if he leaves Westview, he's dead. And that's exactly what he tries to do once Agnes turns around and goes back into the middle of town. So I think somehow she is still in the know of what's going on and what the bigger picture is.
I mean, I don't know, because when he does his little brain shot thing, she says, you know, no one leaves.
Yeah.
Wanda won't even let us think about it.
And of course, that's all he needs to hear
Yeah.
Right.
to try
Yeah,
to get out,
to
to see
leave,
what's
yeah.
going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that. And if you guys caught this, there's a lengthy scene in the middle of town with Wanda and Pietro where they're going back and forth. And there's one person or entity in the background in one shot in particular where the camera is over Wanda's shoulder. You're looking at Wanda, but over her shoulder, there's someone dressed as like a demon, warlock, hooded character that is staring straight at camera
Huh.
every time the camera is on Wanda and he's in the background. Everybody else is milling around having a good time. And this very scary character is looking right at
I
camera
did not catch that.
over her shoulder.
Mephisto?
Mephisto.
Could be.
Mephisto.
Interesting. Literally
because-
over her shoulder.
Because it keeps coming back, you know, because Pietro asks her, like, how did you do this? And she's like, I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
You know, she knows that she's controlling everybody, obviously, and he acknowledges that he can recognize that, but she still keeps claiming that she doesn't know how all of this
Actually started.
While this is happening, there's some stuff happening outside too.
Yes, there is. The Hayward has gone crazy. He is, in effect, firing Monica,
And
Agent
Wu.
Ooh.
and Darcy.
And
Yep.
Darcy. Yep.
We can't have this. They cannot leave this show.
I know.
And need
I
their
wanna-
own show.
I know. I want to show, actually, we were discussing this last night, that we want to show with all our favorite secondary characters. So Luis, from Ant-Man, Wong from
You
Doctor
just call it
Strange,
sidekicks?
Darcy, and Wu. Like, this is what we want. A show with the four of them.
Now, the reason that Hayward is trying to get rid of them is because they're still giving him a hard time about the drone from the last episode. Hayward's idea is to take Wanda out and problem solved. This all goes away. They are of the impression that there's something else going on here. If you take her out, it could make things worse. So, why are you doing this? Hayward doesn't want to hear this, and he tries to get them thrown off. So, of course, they're not having this. So while Vision is having his discussion with Agnes, they're on the outskirts of Westview at the same time. So when Vision comes out, he finally breaks out of this barrier and immediately starts to come apart.
Rumble.
Wanda becomes aware, and to save him, expands the wall of Westview to try to get Vision back, and is successful. But at the same time, sucks up some of our favorite characters.
Yeah.
As well as a few of our not so favorite characters.
Right, so Darcy is inside now, which I can't imagine Darcy being unaware of what's going on around her. So I just feel like she's going to be a real fly in Wanda's ointment here, because there's no way that Darcy will play along the way Monica did.
Yeah.
I just don't see it.
Yeah. And I love the fact that all the army guys and all their equipment just turns into circus tents, and they turn into
become clowns. which Darcy referred to them as earlier. Stuck
I
in the
love
circus
this
in the
scene
clown
when because they're being taken away by sword agents, and Wu and Monica take down the sword agents, and Darcy's like, why didn't anybody tell me the plan?
The plan. Like you were really good too.
But before that happens, Monica is actively talking about going back in.
Right.
And she again mentions this guy that she mentioned in the episode previous. I'm going to meet my guy over the ridge. Yeah. So again, is this Reed Richards?
Is he right there? He's right there. I don't know.
Is this the cameo that Elizabeth Olsen was teasing?
You know what? I want to talk about that because Christina laid it out last week, and the more I thought about it, the more it makes a lot of sense. You would mention Professor Xavier. And of course, I think Magneto. And I think, if you want to go down that road, whenever we saw them recruiting people, they were always together. So why not have Professor X and Magneto show up, in which Professor X says, Wanda, you're a mutant.
Well,
and then Magneto says, oh, Charles, she's much more than that. Cut to black.
But I think, for me, the logic was Magneto would show up because he's their father.
Right.
And my husband said Professor X because he's the only one who could potentially stop her. He's the only one who's powerful enough in this world, all across Marvel, right? Professor X is the only one who has that kind of power. The power to go inside her mind and stop her.
But the fact that we now realize that Pietro is not Pietro puts a little bit of a kink in that, because he is a construct of somebody else who's obviously trying to. I don't know.
But that makes perfect sense to me. But emotionally, I'm still holding out for Captain America.
Cap, come to our rescue.
I mean, obviously, it's so much fun speculating about who it might be. I think that Reed Richards would have an impact for Marvel fans, because you'd be like, oh, great, now the Fantastic Four is integrated into this universe, but I don't think for most people who just watch the films that they will be like, who's Reed Richards?
Yeah, that wouldn't be a gasp-worthy moment for anybody that's not familiar. So it would need to be somebody on a level that the novice has seen before.
Right. Yeah.
Right, because you have to always be thinking about the majority of the people who watch these shows, and the films have never read a Marvel comic.
Yeah. They have to cater to those people as well as the fans, and that's what they do so brilliantly, I have to say. Do we have any thoughts about this episode's commercial for Yo Magic?
Yo Magic, the snack for survivors. It didn't really grab me, but then again, last week's didn't either until I researched it.
it did look like a lot of cartoons from this era, that kind of like animation. Definitely.
It did. It did.
No.
Although I don't think, there was no brand name that we could easily tie it to.
Really, Yoplait doesn't come to mind.
No, I mean like in the Marvel,
Gogurt.
it wasn't like a
Right.
Hydra. It wasn't like, Hydra's Yo Magic or
Right, correct.
Yo
Yeah.
Magic made in Sokovia or anything like that. It was
Yeah.
just a product brand name.
You didn't think it was her magic? Like Yo Magic?
Yo.
Your
I think-
magic? Yeah.
No, I wasn't. I was like, oh, that's too on the nose, but
Maybe that's, I mean,
Advertising fail for Jim. I don't know. 3 episodes left, but boy, if they're going to be an hour each, woo, who knows what they're going to cram
is this
into
true
this.
or is this unfounded rumor?
it could be unfounded rumor.
But
I
we're-
just read it.
But,
I'm
we're
only
perpetuating
reporting.
it.
Yeah, I'm only reporting what I read.
I mean, I think it's fun because there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of speculation about what's happening here. And Falcon and the Winter Soldier is going to start March 19th, I think.
Oh man, we're going to have our hands full, huh?
Yeah.
So it's just going to roll right in
Uh-huh.
pretty much. If there's 3 episodes left, there might be like, 1 week off, maybe? So,
And what's going to happen to Monica after this? Because Darcy says that the Hex is changing her.
Yeah, that is interesting. Is she developing her powers?
yeah.
Who knows?
I don't know.
And
They may all have superpowers by the end of this. Maybe they will get their own show.
again, they did refer back to Captain Marvel because Hayward says, I know your history with Carol Danvers. And I think that gives credence to what I said last week, where his implication was that she empathizes with Wanda, and he was angry with her about that. And I said last week, I thought that she was trying to sort of deflect away from Captain Marvel in a way that was protective. And I think that what Hayward said this week gives credence to that, because I think that it's not necessarily that she has a bad relationship with Captain Marvel, but that she's trying to minimize that connection that other people around her might try to take advantage of.
Did you notice what was on the marquee in the middle of town?
Incredibles and Parent Trap.
Incredibles, always an obvious.
Superheroes hiding out in suburbia.
I always took that as Disney's Fantastic Four.
Yeah, it
was
is
the
Disney's
Incredibles.
Fantastic Four. So, oh, geez, that could yet be another. And obviously, the Parent Trap is twins.
Right.
And then Night of the Living Dead as well. If you notice, there's a film screening.
Oh no, I didn't see that. Oh,
Yeah.
I missed that.
So
How many
Petro
times did
Vision.
you watch this episode, Jim? Or do you just
Well,
like...
no. I did. I'll have to say that the Night of the Living Dead, I did read afterwards that's the movie that's being screened. But I saw with my own eyes that demon guy. So it's when Wanda is talking to the guy
Tara?
dressed up as
Tara.
Frankenstein.
I have
So
to
if
check
you
that
just go
out.
back to
I
look
wanna
at
go
that
look at
scene,
that.
look over her shoulder. There's
Screen
somebody
grabs.
staring right at camera every time the camera cuts to her.
Actually, when she's talking to her, he's the other one who kind of seems to know where he is, like Agnes. He kind of seems to be aware of what's going on. He's again says something to the effect of like something about a take. I can't remember the exact words, but he says something to Wanda like, this is all just the way you want it type of thing. I wish I could remember the
I
exact
feel I need to go back and rewatch this episode now.
but he definitely, Herb and Agnes were the ones who were talking at the fence in an earlier episode.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely seem to be more aware of where they are and what is
Yep.
happening than other
Yep.
characters.
Well, can't wait for next
Stay
week.
tuned.
Episode
Stay
7.
tuned.
Stay tuned.
That's right.
So speaking of next week, what are we doing next week?
Oh, we're gonna stay in our favorite monsters here, but if anybody who listens to this show more than 1 or 2 episodes knows that I've been obsessed with Bigfoot for a very long time, and all cryptids for that matter. So we are going to be talking Harry and the Hendersons, and we're going to be pairing that up with Scooby-Doo and the Loch Ness Monster. So 2 lighthearted movies. It should be fun.
Continuing coverage of WandaVision.
Oh
Yes.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Mhm.
That's, as Jim says, that goes without saying, but no, we need to say it.
And hopefully you'll be back to listen to us talk about it.
Yes. Yes. So thank you very much for
Thank
listening.
you.
This was fun.
Thank
I
you.
enjoyed the alien invasion.
So, bye, everybody.
Poof out.
Bye.
Hello, everybody. If you liked the podcast you just heard, then please follow TMI on all of our social media outlets. First and foremost, email us at tmipodcast2018@gmail.com. That is tmipodcast tmi2018@gmail.com.
And you can follow us on Twitter at TMI_podcast 2018. Stop over, say hi, give us a compliment. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Make sure you follow us on Instagram as well, which is also TMI_podcast 2018.
And of course, we are on Facebook, facebook.com/TMI Podcast 2018. And it should be noted, we also have a community page, so join the forum.
And if you like to watch YouTube, you can see us at TMI Podcast 2018, all one word. Look for the popcorn bucket.
Popcorn bucket. Or you could just go to our website, which has every link there, TMIConfessionalspodcast.com. And we'll see you at the concession stand.
We'll save some popcorn for you.